I've chosen the Dick and Carey model. This is my instructional design video for Assignment 5.1. I start out with this picture. I bring this picture up a couple times. One, it's a reminder of a goal that we set to get somewhere, to get where if these little girls were in an accident, you would feel confident to take care of them, because that's why we're here, is to save lives. And I choose this model because I have higher education students. I have a blended learning environment, blended in many ways. We're going to talk about not only online, not only in the classroom, but in the field setting, the clinical setting, the laboratory setting. It's very blended. I'm going to extend the definition beyond the scope of this class. But my goal, again, going back to the topic, is saving lives. And that's why I choose this method. If they can look, if my students can look at these two little girls here and say, yeah, I can take care of this. They've done their job. They've been accountable for their part, and I have been accountable for my part as the instructor to make sure that these students are where they need to be when they go test their national exam. The overview of the Dick and Carey model incorporates skills, the needs of the students, and the learning context in design. It works great for higher education, like I said, to accumulate or to collaborate different learning styles with adult learners. It also works well with a blended learning environment. It's very detailed. We start out with our instructional goals, and to me, I don't think this is a formal process or step two, but this is to help you get your lesson started, your module, your unit going. However detailed you want to be with how you're using this model. We're going to state our affairs of instruction when we instructional goals. We're going to kind of brainstorm what we need, where we're going to head. We're going to draw a dot on the left side and an arrow to the right side. This is where we want to be. Then our analysis defines our purpose. We're going to determine the skills to reach goals. If we're doing airway, these students need to know these concepts. Can they operate a bag valve mask? Are you going to be able to intubate? You're going to incorporate these skills in with this. We're also going to, on stage 3, we're going to develop and assess our entry behaviors and learning characteristics. We're going to determine the intellectual skills. It's important to me to have different, in my setting where I have young people that are 20 years old or 50 years old, it's important for me to group them based on their learning styles, because that also a lot of times helps with personality conflicts. If I can put young people together, they kind of will enmesh. Usually, the older ones kind of enmesh. The gripers kind of enmesh. And sometimes when you have different personality, you have to still separate one or two here and there to make it work. But for the most part, you can group them by their learning experiences, learning styles, and that way they're working together on notes. If you're doing lecture, or if they're going to be in the skills lab, that group will kind of come together and help each other learn. And the ones that suffer with that, they're going to understand one another. Entry behavior. So that's our entry behaviors. We're going to do our performance objectives. Now this is going to be, I like to think of 1, 2, and 3 as like a holistic view of what we're going to do. And then we can start narrowing it down with our performance objective. What objectives are we going to get? If we're doing airway, are we going to write our COPD objectives, our congestive heart failure, whatever's causing problems breathing, and how you would incorporate your skills and how you would start putting that together to get your outcomes. For 5, we are going to, this has to do with criteria and reference test items. We're going to help individualize prerequisites for learning new skills. What should they already know? Let's build off of experience. We are also going to check results of student learning. We may just kind of see where they are. We might do a little test to see. Then we're going to document their progress at this point. The next one is the instructional strategy. How the instructional activities will correlate with the objectives. So we're gonna map out how these objectives are going to meet with their skills, their lecture, their content, however we need to do that. Then our instructional materials. When we're doing these skills, what are we going to need? If we're doing airway, we know we're going to need a laryngoscope. We know we're going to need our correct size ET tubes, our oral airway devices. We're going to start listing the things that they need. And this will be a cumulative list because I don't like putting everything in a box. As long as the students are doing right. For instance, a bougie is a device that you can put in the airway before you intubate a patient. So I like to give my students the opportunity to select what will work for them. If they don't like the bougie, it's not a requirement. It's not something that you have to use. But it is an assistant device. Some students do well without the bougie. It just gets in their way. So I let them pick as long as they are in the correct manner, and as long as their patient survives the procedure. That's a strong word. But as long as they are successful at what they're doing and they're not meeting any critical criteria, because even if they do the skills right, if they miss one critical criteria, such as something simple as not having gloves on, that is an OSHA requirement. You fail the skill. Or if you time out, that's a critical criteria. You have to do it within a certain amount of time. The patient has to have air. So you take in all these considerations, and there's where you list. You put your instructional materials there. Then we do formative evaluations. I like the small groups. We'll do field scenarios. We may do a larger group. We'll have some people. When we do a larger group, a lot of times I'll have some doing different parts of the scenario where somebody will be the patient, somebody will be bystanders. Try to accumulate a lot of different viewpoints so they understand what's going on and can put themselves in that situation. Then for a summative evaluation, we're going to see how well they did. How well we do all our work. We've instructed, we've participated in lab, we've participated in clinical, we went outside in the scenarios on the campus, and then we come in and we may do skills review, skills check off to see how well they did. We also may do a test, and then we go from there. The Dick and Carey model is a more higher level model. It works. The higher level is what I teach. So the dictated elements are placed there. You set your performance objectives and develop your instructional strategy before developing the instructional materials. you can use this as a guide and use it to target skills and knowledge to be taught. This is very important to me. The 9 stages will help me stay on task and make sure I follow and make sure everything is covered. Every component is crucial to successful learning, especially in my setting with my students. The focus is to make successful paramedics at the end and make sure they can go in as entry-level practitioners. I've got a couple pictures that I'll show you, that I'm showing you that here's one type of our simulation. The guy in the blue here with the blue shirt, he is one of my paramedic students. He's helping me this day. We're working on a first responder class, and not only would I use this for paramedic class or EMT class, but I can also use this model for first responders. If you look here, this is a group of factory workers who have barely have a CPR card. They're working together as a team to critical think what they need to do. We've got them out in the element. These students do well in this condition. In our model, this would be our instructional material. You can see our materials. We've already set our objectives. Same thing here. We have an ambulance simulator. This would help another way for some students. Our learning styles. This helps our visual and auditory. They hear me say it. They can see the diagram. I make sure to have plenty of diagrams in my lecture when I have to lecture. Here we are. We were in cardiovascular emergencies, but the day before we did trauma. So if you can't really see the guy, he's on the spine board. We did a rapid takedown with him there in between cardiovascular emergencies, and that helps them just stop lecture from cardiovascular and just kind of take a break and do a skill in between lectures.